It's a victim-aggressor all the way up. When, they get tired of being the victim, then they switch over to be the aggressor for a while.
Yeah, we do that.
And they generally play the aggressor on the same people who used to be they were a victim of, right?
Yes.
Check out that picture and see what you see in the see what you see in the picture.
Yes.
And see if you see how it foreshadows what's going on right this very minute.
Mm-hmm. I looked at it again and thought, oh, it's a technology that they're developing to create artificial peaks of fear.
Recording?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Then welcome
To another episode
of Drive It to the Res.
with your favorite hosts,
Inelia.
and Larry. Oh, you said my name, honey.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Feels nice.
It does. It does.
Yeah, usually I just say my name so I don't mess up yours, but I just practiced.
Yes, you did practice. You did good.
Thank you.
What are we talking about today?
Well, it's a today, and today is, I guess, it's kind of a spicy week.
It's been a spicy week. Can you tell us about it?
Spicy in the sense in between emergency broadcast and World War III, and Ukraine, and all those Gaza's. So it came to my attention, that there's got to be something going on here. And how do we look at this from a relatively enlightened perspective, right?
Right.
Because our focus is on enlightenment the next couple months, and it's turning out to be for a good reason, I guess. Hi, Brad. It's a kitty.
Yes.
If you want to watch the prettiest cat on the planet laying in my lap,
Watch the video.
watch the video.
Yeah,
He came to work,
he did.
and he's doing a good job of it.
He is. He's doing a brilliant job.
Yeah. Onto the serious topic of enlightened perspectives, right?
With cat.
Cats. The expert
Enlightened.
distractor.
The expert enlightened, I think, also.
Also that.
Yes.
Ronnie would agree.
Yes.
He thinks the cats are experts
Yes.
because they feed him.
Yeah.
So when we look at this, what's going on from something of an enlightened perspective, we find that what we mean by enlightened means an expanded awareness. As we expand our awareness, I found, at least my experience of expanding my awareness on the topics, I found the same thing, only different levels of it.
Can you give us an example?
It's a victim-aggressor all the way up.
Yes.
At the smaller level, it's like an individual having the experience of another individual with power over them. They playing the victim or
The aggressor.
the aggressor. And
Sometimes they swap sides.
when, they get tired of being the victim, then they switch over to be the aggressor for a while.
Yeah, we do that.
And they generally play the aggressor on the same people who used to be they were a victim of, right?
Yes.
But they're not restricted to just that. Oftentimes enough, they'll play that with somebody else. But that's at the very smaller level, physical. I got, harassed and victimized by this person, so now I'm going to victimize them back. I'm going to get even,
Or
things
because
like that.
those people were aggressive to me, then I will find somebody weaker than me and be aggressive in the same way to them.
Right.
Because it's my turn now.
Yeah, there's those justifications and things like that. And as we get bigger, it goes like my tribe. And then it's my nation.
Yeah, it's the biggest
my
victim of those
country,
injustices,
my race.
and therefore, yeah.
Yeah, we just, as it gets bigger and expanded more by numbers of people,
Our
it's
planet.
still the same victim-aggressor. It's just, we'll call it a bigger thing. Then we have the
Government did it?
governments are playing false flags, or the governments are playing this or that game, and it's the government's fault. And if we just elected the right people, then we wouldn't be the victims of these bad judgments and things like that, right?
Yes.
But again, it's still a victim-aggressor issue.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Then we go a little bigger. Let's say it's the aliens races. That's controlling the controllers. That's controlling the stick that makes us go do this and that. So again, it's still victim-aggressor.
Yes.
Right? And we just need to get this alien race off our backs or whatever.
Right.
And then we get to the, let's say, after death, in between life, we're going to go to the spiritual realms. And in the spiritual realms, there's a spiritual battle going on between good and evil and whatever ever. And as I went up and up and up, it was all the same game.
Yes.
So I got confused.
Oh, no. You got confused?
Yep.
All right.
I got confused because I thought as you become more enlightened and more expanded in your awareness that you would escape that game, or at least find the end of that game.
Or even see it.
Or
Let's
even
begin
see
with
it.
seeing it, okay? Let's begin with seeing it.
Right. So
And Sheriff sent you a...
yeah, Sheriff sent. Sheriff is one of our members of the Star Tribe. And he listens to the second hour. He gets involved in our after parties.
Yeah, that's Subscribestar
That's
for our
Subscribestar,
sponsors.
yeah. Our patrons of the light.
Patrons of the light get goodies.
Right. So we we do this podcast, which is the free version. And we'll talk for like a good half hour or so
Yeah.
about a topic. And then we'll do a second hour.
Yeah.
And that's
Usually
part
more
of
than an hour for the
Subscribestar.
second part, yeah.
The second hour usually goes more than an hour. We have a group now,
Yes.
a group of mystics.
We have individuals we can talk with and discuss and expand on these topics, giving
Right.
a much broader, more interesting,
well, more
view
in
of
depth for
this.
sure.
Yes, yes.
And as part of that second hour subscription, there's also an after party. So when the full version comes out, full version of the podcast comes out on Wednesday. On Friday, we have a call, a Zoom call. And usually Ashley and I show up, and whoever's on Walk With Me Now or Star Tribe or whomever wants to show up and get into depth about the podcast that we just listened to.
Yes.
We show up, we have a chin wag.
Yes, indeed.
And that's been a lot of fun. So anyway, Sherv is one of the Star Tribe members. And he brought this article to our attention, my attention, Star Tribe's attention on our Telegram chat.
Yes.
And it's perfect.
So we decided to do the podcast this week on this article. This article is from 2014.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because in 2014, we weren't as severely shadow banned
No.
as we are now. And whenever I used to publish an article, I would get several hundred, sometimes thousands of views of the article. But with this one, there was just a handful. And I remember that piqued my attention at the time, thinking, oh, that's interesting. Like, how come this article, all of them, So was it the title? Was it the picture I used?
You did have an interesting picture.
Yes, yes, yes.
Foreshadowing,
Yes.
I would say.
Yeah.
So this article's titled In My Defense. And there'll be a link in the notes. You can go check it out. Check out that picture and see what you see in the see what
picture.
you see in the picture.
Yes.
And see if you see how it foreshadows what's going on right this very minute. So anyway, give it a read a little bit.
Okay, we'll read a little bit of it. If my life is in danger, and by the way, it's called In My Defense, right?
Yes.
Just to remind everybody again. If my life is in danger, or someone in my environment is in physical or psychological danger from an aggressor, I will defend myself or them without question. But when it comes to defending my integrity, my name, my work, pride, or anything else, I will simply walk away, even if affected by it. Sometimes I do get affected. There's an emotional charge to being betrayed by someone who professed their friendship, for example, or someone who goes behind my back and speaks against me so that they are liked by others while pretending to be my friend and supporter. Or someone who would viciously attack me on the internet, often anonymously, of course, in order to feel important or get some attention, or because my power and influence threatens them. It does upset me sometimes, but instead of reacting to that upsetness, what I do is I process it, the disappointment and pain, and continue on my path.
What do you mean when you say process it?
I use the fear processing exercise, but instead of using the word fear, I use like anger, disappointment, feeling betrayed, sadness, frustration, any of those energies that might come up. That's what I use, those words. So I use that exercise.
So you just use the same exercise, but you adjust the words to the thing that you're feeling that's a negative
Yes.
emotion.
Yeah.
So you could find that at processyourfear.com.
Okay.
Right? Processyourfear.com. You put in your email, then you get an audio or a text or both versions of it to give it a try yourself. Okay, so you've processed it.
And then I continue on
your
my path. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It is hard, though, when we receive a negative energy of engagement in the form of insults or attacks. It often incurs a cost. This cost is the effect it has on the small self. And I do have a small self.
Well, myself, the small self, gets a little bit triggered too if somebody tries to attack you.
Yes,
My small self and my big self both goes a bit nuts.
they do go a little bit nuts if somebody attacks me.
Yes, big and small self,
Yes.
all self.
It's not very influential in my life, my small self, but it does affect me sometimes. It wasn't always there, but at some point in linear time I created it in order to understand what others were going through in life. Most of the suffering, stress, pain, fights, and conflicts we experience are due to the small self in us or others. Take a look at a conflict you are in right now. Step back and see if it has any bearing to your physical survival. If it does not, then it's about the small self. Some cultures will teach that people should kill to defend their pride, their honor, or their family's honor, or be severely punished if they dishonor themselves or their family. But what is honor and pride but an egoic projection of importance? Often we use the story of all physical, emotional, and psychological attacks we have received through our lives to validate our own brutality. And I think this is really key of what's being used, because in 2022 we did a call called Looking at 2023.
I remember it. I was there.
And in that call, we talked about how there were several things that were being built upon to be used to create fear spikes within the human collective of what we know as Earth. And one of them was diseases, right? Viruses. Another one was aliens,
Yes.
right? And another one was war, and then a financial collapse as well.
I think they got all of those running.
Yeah.
I know I've heard plenty
Yeah.
about the aliens.
Yeah.
Always the financial collapse for sure.
Yeah.
So
there's a couple of things here I wanted to talk about, right? One of them is you mentioned at the start of this podcast the emergency broadcast that happened in October.
Yeah.
A lot of people were talking about it, and I looked at it before it happened, and I couldn't see anything significant. But I kept getting niggles, and I kept getting invitations to look at it again from people I respect. So I looked at it again and thought, oh, it's a technology that they're developing to create artificial peaks of fear. Because everything else, I mean, people get from immune almost to fear porn anymore.
Yes.
And it's quite horrific, actually.
Aliens are come, and we're going to get COVID, and we're going to have a war, and World War III, and our financial collapse is happening all at once.
All
please.
at once.
We need all of them.
Yeah. And
Still not enough.
not enough. So the sounds of that alarm are quite horrific, and it sends your body into a peak of fear, right? People have screamed, run away. Your body just goes into fear, even though you're awake and know what's going on.
Still
and you know
shocked.
it's a test. The body gets shocked, and it's designed to be that. And what does this create in an entire country or continent or world? It's a fear spike.
Yeah.
And that can be harvested and used.
Wow.
Okay? So there was that. And then soon after that, we get all sorts of news about things happening around the planet that act as an amplifier. Because when your physical body or your energetic body, your emotional body goes through a fear spike, it doesn't get rid of it right away, right? It can last a few days. Your body's edgy,
More susceptible.
to all sorts of things, right? So the stress factor gets amplified, and then that fear energy can be harvested or used for whatever aims or desires the people who are generating these things want to use it for. And then that is when we start going deeply again into the victim-aggressor cycle. So I always like to remind people, you're listening to this, you're going to get angry, you're going to feel victimized, or that other people are being aggressors or other people are being victims. Don't. Can't happen without your agreement. We switched all of our devices off about an hour earlier because I said, they're going to turn it on earlier. So let's just make sure, just an hour earlier, half an hour earlier, I think it was.
Got a lot of good chores done, honestly.
We did, yeah. And, the level of screen addiction was, for me anyways, quite clear. It's like, I'm so addicted to screens, it's just insane. And I have been since the 80s when I started looking at screens and playing with screens and working with screens. And, but we did, and then we left it off for quite a while afterwards, about an hour later, or I think
maybe
it was maybe 2 hours later, we hadn't turned them on again. And then we turned them on and it was fine. But throughout that 2 hours or 2 hours.
I think 3.
3 hours. There were 3 fear spikes that my physical body felt. And when I felt it, I looked at the clock. And I remember the first one thinking, I can't be right because it's earlier. It's too soon. And then other people who had forgotten to turn off their phone told me, yeah, it's like they didn't wait until the time they said. They actually did it a bit earlier. So that was one. But again, it's like we go into the victim-aggressor cycle and we start thinking that we can't do anything about this. And some of these victim-aggressor cycles are really old. Like, who is the first victim, right? And all the wars and conflict are built upon those. And it has nothing to do with that, actually. It's nothing to do with that. But they're built. And like you and I are reading a book, or you're reading a book for me, based in Ireland. And they talk about the troubles in Ireland.
Yeah, the IRA and the Catholics, the Protestants, and bombing each other, and hundreds of people being killed.
Yeah. And I lived in Ireland in the 90s. And I lived in Dublin. And when I used to drive my children to school and then go and collect them from school. And one of the things we had to do with the school was to leave a contact address and phone number and name of a person who could collect the children if after a bombing, the parent didn't come back. So if the parent didn't turn up to the school after there was a bombing in Dublin, this other person could come over and get the kids. And this was a standard, right? Standard. And I remember many times that I would change my mind about where I was going to drive to get back to through the university back to the kids. I would change my mind and I would drive in a different path, and there was a bomb go off in one of those streets I would have been on. So it's like, yeah, it's very interesting. And one of the things was that all of those bombings and all the killings that the Protestants did, they got very little media time. The ones that the Catholics did, the IRA, got a lot of media time. So that to me was interesting too. To me, they were both bad. I mean, it's like ridiculous bombing each other because you have different religions, really. That's ridiculous. That is really...
Is there that much difference between Catholicism and Protestantism?
Yes, allegedly, yeah.
Okay.
So I was a Buddhist at the time.
Okay.
And I went to the Northern Ireland to do, Belfast actually, to do an event. I attended an event in Northern Ireland. And we were in the event, and then we went out to the store, me and some 2 or 3 of the other Buddhists. I went into the store and I went to buy something, and the guy behind the counter looks at me and he says, you're Catholic or a Protestant, right, in their accent. And I'm like, I'm a Buddhist. And he looks at me and crunches his eyes a little bit and looking at me. Okay, he says, but are you a Buddhist Catholic or a Buddhist Protestant? And I couldn't quite get it. You know, it's like, and I was trying to figure out what he was saying. And the girl that I was with, she says, like, oh, she's okay. She's with us. You know, she's fine. She's fine. Right. And he goes, oh, okay. So she's a Catholic Buddhist. And I'm like, you know that Buddhism is a religion. Well, not quite a religion, but you can't be a Catholic and a Buddhist at the same time. Right. And the girl I was with was shaking her head and says, you know, look, you're a Catholic. You know, it's like, it's fine. Just pay the man. But it was to that degree of ridiculousness, right? And anyways, moving forward 2-3 years later, from the headquarters of the Buddhists in Japan, they sent a order that Ireland had to be sorted out because it was not right that there would be a war there going on when there was Buddhists living in the land, right? So the Buddhists were told off. What the hell are you doing? Why is there a war going on still there while you're there now, right? Our Buddhist organization's there. There shouldn't be any wars. Hello.
How am I doing your meditation properly?
Right. No, they hadn't addressed it, right? Okay. Chanted about it.
Hadn't chanted it properly?
About it.
I don't know how it works, but okay.
You chant about something. You chant about something. Yes.
Okay.
So they get the order. Okay, so at 7:00 on Thursday nights, I don't remember the actual time, but it is an example. You're all going to get together. I think it was 6:00. You're all going to get together, both in Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, all the Buddhists in a room that you have to rent. And you're going to chant for peace.
Okay.
For the cessation of violence. That was the actual words, I think. No more violence. And you're going to do this. And you're going to do it until the violence stops. And the Buddhist leader in the Republic of Ireland, where I lived, in Dublin, I arrived, and I was so happy, finally, we're going to do this, right? And she's like looking really depressed and upset and angry. And I'm like, what's going on? Why are you so upset? She says, well, she said, these people don't know in Japan what's going on here. And I said, what's going on here? These troubles have been going on for 600 years.
Going to be chanting for a long time, huh?
And they think that we can just stop it, like, within our lifetime. And, how long are we going to be doing this,
We better just buy this building instead of renting it.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I look at her, and I hold her hands, and I said, Maureen, she says, yes. There's one difference between... And she said, I used to be this, and we used to do prayer circles and blah. People are doing prayer circles about the troubles all over Ireland all the time. Nothing works. It hasn't worked. And we have organized chanting before for this, and the violence doesn't stop. So I held her hands. I said, Maureen, and she says, what? There's some very massive difference here between what we're doing now and what has happened before. She says, what is it? And I look at her into her eyes and says, I'm doing it. I'm here with you. So this is going to work. And she laughs and giggles.
Bless your cotton socks.
Yeah. But it was like, it was half a joke. I mean, I was trying to make her feel better, right? But I knew it was also to do with, like, whenever I used to go in an airplane and somebody was really nervous, I'd say, so you're fine. I'm in the airplane, so it's not going to fall down. There was a knowing behind it that it was true. But it was also a joke or something to make somebody feel better, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't know if it was going to work or not, but it felt different to me because I was there. I hadn't been there on the other ones. I mean, so it's a main difference, right?
That's a pretty big difference.
Anyway, she looks at me after she laughs and everything, and she kind of quizzically, she says, I love your faith. You know, it's like,
Love your faith.
yeah, I love your faith. This is the energy. Yeah, she said, this is the spirit. This is the spirit. Totally, right? This is the spirit. We have to go into this way. This is the commitment. I said, that's right, Maureen, that's right. So we sat down and started chanting, and it was only like, I don't know, maybe 6 months down the road of doing this every week, that it was all over the news that the troubles, there was a ceasefire.
Right.
There was a ceasefire. And everybody was like, what? What? That's impossible. That cannot happen here. How? Ceasefire? No. That, you know, it's like impossible. It's not happening. It's not real. It can't be happening because this will never happen. And that week when we went to the chanting place, right? Maureen comes up to me and she said, well, I think you're right, you know? Here it is. But she said, don't hold your breath because it's not going to last.
Oh.
And I said to her, well, I don't know what to tell you. You told me it wasn't going to cease. It has ceased, right? Now you're telling me it's not going to last. So I'm telling you, of course it's going to last. And she's, ha, 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 ha. Oh, I hope so, she said. And then, you know, after a few more weeks, we were able to stop doing that because it stuck, you know, it was over. And then all sorts of interesting things happen afterwards. Legitimizing the terrorist organization now as a political party, and all sorts of interesting things with regards to magic and voices and all sorts of other stuff. But, you know, it was an interesting story, but I'm telling the story because it's not about me personally, Inelia, Benz, you know, being there doing that. It's about the commitment that because you are deciding something, that's going to be reflected back to you in the universe where you live. So you're going to be hearing more about victims and aggressors. And one of the things to really understand is don't take sides. Once you take a side, you're part of the problem. And I don't care if one side has been enslaving, torturing, and killing the other one for thousands of years. And finally, the other one stands up and starts fighting back. Or whether they're going back and forth, right, all the time. Or whether it's a false flag event and none of it is really real. I don't care of any of those. The fact is that we're conscious and we're aware and we know that the mechanizations are about creating fear and normalizing the victim, aggressor, savior, martyr energy.
Amplifying
it. So the Gaza thing, Palestinian thing, I can tell you that when I was growing up in England, I was 12 years old. When you walked into my mom's house, or my house where I lived, you opened the door, and next to the door, there was a ginormous poster of a Palestinian with the checkered black and white wrap around his head and like a rifle breaking and some barbed wire, blah, 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 blah. And it was interesting to me. That was the image that would meet me.
Greet you
as I came home, yeah. And I remember once the police came over because something was going on. I can't remember what it was. They came over to ask some questions. And as soon as they walked in, they saw the poster. And immediately, because at the time, the police didn't carry weapons in England. That happens later. But at the time, they didn't carry weapons. And the police, there was two of them, their eyes went really wide. And you could see the fear in their eyes. And I looked at them and I remember looking into the fear in their eyes, and they were looking inside the house. There was people there. And I said, oh, this poster, oh, don't worry about that. That was just like somebody gave them to us. I don't know what it is. But yeah, don't worry about it. You're fine. Like, and I was like 12, you know? And they're going, oh, do you know what this means? And I says, not really. It's just some guy gave it to us, and, you know, it's a poster, it's a present, so it's up in the wall. And it's like, you might want to take that down. And it says, why? Well, it has a lot of meaning and it's dangerous, so you could be giving the wrong message about who lives here. And I'm like, oh, is this about bad guys? Is this about bad guys? And it's like, well, I don't want to say anything like that. That's not my job. But you don't want to give the wrong impression to people. It's okay. Well, I'll tell my mom what you said. So it's okay, good. Look, come in, have a cup of tea, you know, like the usual cup thing.
Civilized, of course.
So that was interesting because, I mean, it's like I had kind of subscribed to the whole thing of Palestinians being victims and stuff. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I had a friend who went to school with a girl, and she had left Persia, which became Iran, because of the persecution of women, right? There was a religious thing that happened there, and then her and her family had to leave because her mom and her grandma and her aunties were all professionals, professional doctors, you know, an astrologer, what's it called?
Astronomer?
An astronomer. There was like a physicist, you know, it's like these women were professional, high career, like top career women. And their husbands also, but their husbands were fine, but they had to leave. The entire family left because the women had been told they couldn't go back to work and they had to wear stuff around their faces and couldn't show their faces and stuff like that. And they left with their daughters, and one of the daughters was my friend.
Oh, I see.
And then she made a comment about the freaking poster, you know? So it's like looking at it, you know, and she said, I should be happy that you have this poster in your house, you know, because of where I come from and my religion and everything, my background, but I'm not. And I said, why not? And then she told me the story, right? I'm like scratching my head going, where does this end? It's like, who's the victim here? Who's the aggressor? And where does it all go, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it never ends. It never stops. And you know, it's like, basically I took down the poster.
It's just too much.
It's too much. And plus also, where's the line? Who's actually the victim and who's the aggressor here? It's like, it goes back and forth, and then aggressors have victims and victims have aggressors. And like, you know, a victim can be an aggressor to another person, to another gender, and another relative. I don't know. You know, it's like, where does it end? Where does it end? So anyways.
That's kind of where I was looking when I started to expand my awareness around it. It all was victim-aggressor all the way up.
All the way.
All the way up.
All the way up, down, sideways.
So
all the ways.
That's the linchpin, if you want to call one. So let's read some more of this.
The nature of attacks.
Because, you know, there are some big selves and little selves also.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
There are some.
If I had gone with the little self and into the victim-aggressor cycle,
yes,
I wouldn't be talking to you today. I'd be dead.
You'd be took out.
Yes.
Okay.
When I was a kid, not
Young.
now.
Yes, yes.
When I was little.
When you were 12.
Or even younger.
Probably younger, huh?
Yes. There was a lot of attempts in my life, I can tell you. It's ridiculous. I thought it was normal, man. And then other people said, what?
Really?
That doesn't happen. It shouldn't have happened. Anyways, going forward. The nature of attacks. Most personal, non-life-threatening attacks have very basic pattern. 3 of these patterns are 1. making oneself right by making another wrong. 2. Validating oneself by invalidating another. And 3. Reacting to an unconscious or conscious fear. In my experience, number 1 is the most prevalent in our society. It is, in fact, encouraged. We find this being used in politics and debates of all sorts, in science, religion, and social organizations, and think tanks around the world. That's making oneself right by making another wrong. Okay?
Okay.
More than once, I have received messages and emails demanding that I respond to some claim or other that I am, enter comment, making me wrong here.
Yes.
Or that I defend or validate my own views on things. I don't respond to or answer these messages now, but have done so in the past due to giving in to external pressure. I tend not to give in to external pressures these days.
No, you haven't.
No.
Not in my experience.
No. Recently, a friend of mine told me that he has seen that the more powerful, confident, and capable I appear to become as a public known individual, the more vicious and insidious the attacks get. This is simply a reflection of number 3 above. Shall we remind ourselves what that is?
Yep.
Reacting to an unconscious or conscious fear.
Oh, yeah. So as you become powerful, there's some
fear.
time of fear that's triggered.
Yeah.
Okay.
People are afraid of influential individuals. They're afraid of power, and with good cause. And they're afraid of being conned. The energetic attacks at a mystical level has also increased tremendously every month since I accepted the mission to become publicly known so as to deliver the message of empowerment to the masses. How we deal with these mystical attacks is pretty much the same as we deal with overt attacks. We process any effect they might have in us, and we move on. Retaliation, defense, or justice is irrelevant. It would only feed into the attack and lowering of our vibrational frequency. If we spend any time defending, attacking our attackers, or getting payback, we're simply feeding the aggression cycle. All that energy is much better spent inspiring and empowering others. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and inspiring and empowering others. But what if they're deep in the victim-aggressor cycle? How's empowering victims?
I don't do that.
Don't do that part?
No. Okay. If somebody's chosen to be a victim and nothing I say will change their mind, it's fair enough. Go ahead and be a victim. If somebody comes up to me and says, I think I may be in the victim-aggressor cycle, but I can't quite put my finger on it or get out of it, then I will speak to that.
Give some time, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you say empowering or inspiring others, it isn't going around saving people in victims' spot by trying to empower them. That's not what you're saying.
No.
I just wanted to make that clear. Because it can be easily misinterpreted.
Yeah, you're probably right. So to me, inspiring and empowering means individuals who are already decided they don't want to be in the victim-aggressor cycle, want to learn the tools of how to get out of it.
Or stay out of it, or not get sucked into it.
Exactly, yeah.
Those things. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. How does observing our defenses empower the planet?
How does what?
Observing our defenses, being defensive, right? Empower the planet. Conflict and war at any level lowers our human collective vibration. I meant frequency here.
Right.
I've changed my vocabulary a little bit since I wrote this. It doesn't matter whether you're shouting at your dog or shooting bullets at an enemy. The energy of conflict goes against our nature, and it is only there through heavy programming. The past week, I was recuperating from long hours on airplanes. I watched several TV shows. I was shocked at the normalization of violence and the brutality of the violence depicted. And it has gotten so much worse since 2014. It's shocking. Shocking.
Truly shocking. Honestly, I haven't been so shocked. And I watched lots of shows, right?
Yes.
And pretty much impervious. And I mean, I can't do it. I can't watch some of it. I was like, are you kidding me? Why do they have this on here?
Yes.
Why would they put this? This doesn't help the plot any. All of a sudden we're just, what? Why is that there?
No, it's just wrong.
Absurd.
In one of them, a film about a gangster family in witness protection relocated to France showed children and adults being brutally beaten up by the protagonists. It was supposed to be funny because the kids and adults who were brutalized had said something wrong to the protagonists, or some minor wrong to them. In another show, an extremely popular TV series, the level of violence was simply incredible. It included the rape, sexual abuse, brutal murder of children, men and women, and extreme psychological abuse, all normalized in some fantasy time and geographical area, in a time and place far, far away.
And not so far away now.
No.
Now that's what they're using live.
Reality TV is popular because it is conflict-driven. Violence of many kinds are depicted, even physical fights. And it doesn't stop at TV shows. Most computer games are about killing people, creatures, or monsters. But here's the thing. The programming to be and act from a place of aggression and violence cannot succeed unless we subscribe to it. Once we see that it is simply programming, it is indeed an attempt by a faction of the human collective to walk a low frequency and highly addictive path, then we can simply switch that programming off.
And that's the thing to recall, the addictive nature of it. I mean,
It's very addictive, yes.
if you had the choice between watching an exciting show or a really boring one, what are you going to watch?
That's how it's translated.
It's translated into,
Yes.
well, this one's exciting because things are happening.
And your body
This
gets
one, the
all
other one's
triggered up.
boring.
And,
Triggers.
Yeah.
Triggers are somehow good.
Yeah. How do we switch it off? We make a list and observe all the areas where we feel wronged, where we are defending ourselves, where we are attacking others. Right? So this list.
You could start that list in your head, and you could start with just one or two things.
Yes, let's do a couple of things.
Somebody makes fun of your body shape, size, or whatever.
For example, yes.
For example.
Or somebody tells you did something that you didn't do.
Yeah, some that has on the past, been a thing.
Yeah.
It's like
That used to be my big one.
Wrongly accused.
Yeah. That used to be my big one until I saw it was a program.
Yeah.
And that was being used to control me. And I thought, wait, what?
It stops working when you see it, right?
Yeah.
So my dad does that to me, remember?
Oh my God, it's so
He's
funny.
a freaking pro at it.
Yeah, he knows exactly how to manipulate you. It's hilarious to watch.
To get a charge out of me.
Yes.
Yeah. I've now that you mentioned it more than once, because it took, I think, about 10 times.
Yes.
Then I could start to move out of the trigger part and just see it for what it was. And then I get to choose how I respond, which
Exactly.
honestly is so much nicer.
It is when you
so
choose.
much more pleasant.
Yes.
I don't really enjoy that rise.
No.
No, I just don't like it at all.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. We observe each item in our list until we see the larger picture, until we are no longer energetically affected by the conflict or attack, until we no longer want to do something about this to bring it to justice. But remember, if it involves you or someone else's physical or psychological survival or well-being, do get yourself or the person under attack away if possible, and if not possible, then defend and protect them. Why? Because survival of our person is different to the survival of our small self.
Right. You're not just going to stand there and let the car run you over. Step out of the road.
Yes, exactly. And this is literally you, not you watching a show on television or the news on television and seeing people brutalized, okay? This is literally
you don't
you.
play the victim by being the victim.
Right.
You don't not play the victim by being a victim. Mm-hmm. You don't take things out of context, right?
Yeah.
So not playing the victim-aggressor roles means not being a victim.
Yes.
So you don't allow yourself to be victimized.
Or an aggressor.
Sure. Or an aggressor.
Yeah.
You don't allow yourself to be a bully.
Yeah.
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 That's not playing that game.
No. Do note that aggression and conflict are highly addictive. They are dramatic, and we love drama. Drama and conflict do not exist outside of the small self. The fact that they do not exist outside of the small self is often the reason why we hold on to the small self so strongly. Our reality, our planet, our species still supports low-level experiences such as war, conflict, drama, and such. This is a fact. Our species is empowered with the choice. It is up to us whether we want to hold on to those low-level games or not. That's why there is such a heavy programming happening via media, culture, and religions to hold on to the small games. We're exposed to them, and the effect is the same as someone being exposed to crack cocaine for the first time. Well, we either become totally addicted to it, refuse to ingest it, or recover after being addicted to it for a long or a short time. We can help our species to drop the addiction by observing it within ourselves, and empowering others to enable them to observe it within themselves. Just observing without any intent expands our awareness on the facts behind this addiction at a global scale. Do share this article and this podcast with anyone who you feel will benefit and be empowered by it. Send it to your lists and reblog it. The more of us who act by sharing this information, the easier the load will become and the faster our species will expand in awareness.
You used a word, I don't know. I want to be sure everybody understands what you mean when you say to observe it.
In this context, it's just looking at it. It's not the actual exercise that's like zero observe, observe with a zero. It's not that. Within this context, it's just look.
Observe it.
Yeah.
Take it in. Take in the scene.
Yeah. Take in the scene.
Okay.
Yeah. Become the observer here.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I can imagine in our second hour, we'll probably get into
a lot more
stuff, because I can only imagine what our mystics have heard.
Yeah, and they've been
and what they've been experiencing, and what
yes.
their experiences of this exact same, the alarm thingy, if they were exposed to it or not, the everythings. Yeah. I want to hear what they have to say. I wish it was right now.
Yeah, let's click our fingers and it will be. And he says, and then we hear this growling of men and smashing and stuff. And he says, it's too late. It's like, he says, it's okay. He says, I'll defend you. And it's this young cop, right? And at the time they didn't wear guns or anything. And he's standing in front of us and he's looking up at this road. And he says, and I said, maybe we should go and stand against the wall.